Chapter 1, The Outbreak. In the sweltering summer of 1983, Dallas, Texas, was known for its lively atmosphere and vibrant nightlife. However, all that changed when a wave of terror descended upon the city. It began innocuously enough, with rumors of a strange illness spreading among the population. At first, people dismissed it as a passing flu or a minor epidemic. But soon, the truth revealed itself in the most horrifying way possible. The infected began to show signs of violent aggression, attacking and devouring anyone in their path. Panic erupted as the city plunged into chaos. Emergency services were overwhelmed, leaving the survivors to fend for themselves. Amid the escalating nightmare, Sarah, a young woman with an indomitable spirit, found herself trapped in her apartment. From her window, she watched in horror as her neighbors succumbed to the virus, transforming into bloodthirsty creatures. Fear gripped her, but she knew she had to find a way out. With no time to waste, Sarah rummaged through her belongings, gathering essential supplies, a backpack, a flashlight, a knife, and a small radio. She knew she needed to connect with others to increase her chances of survival. Taking a deep breath, she ventured out into the apocalyptic streets. The city was unrecognizable. Once bustling streets were now littered with abandoned cars and the remains of those who had fallen victim to the virus. The stench of decay hung heavy in the air as Sarah moved cautiously, sticking to the shadows and avoiding any signs of movement. As she made her way through the desolate city, she encountered other survivors who, like her, were desperately seeking refuge. Jack, a former Army veteran, emerged from the shadows, his rugged appearance a testament to the hardships he had endured. Sarah and Jack exchanged wary glances before cautiously joining forces, realizing that their chances of survival were greater together than alone. Their initial goal was to find a secure location, somewhere they could establish a temporary base. They navigated through the city's maze-like streets, evading the relentless pursuit of the infected. The eerie silence was broken only by occasional screams and the haunting moans of the undead. Finally, they stumbled upon an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Its crumbling walls offered a glimmer of hope amidst the surrounding despair. With no time to spare, they barricaded the entrance, fortifying their new sanctuary as best they could. Their first night within those cold, desolate walls was filled with tension and sleepless vigilance. Sarah and Jack knew they couldn't stay holed up in the warehouse forever. They needed supplies and a plan for long-term survival. The city had become a death trap, and they had to be smart and resourceful if they wanted to overcome the odds stacked against them. Little did they know that their journey was just beginning. The outbreak was spreading, and the fight for survival would push them to their limits. As the sun set on that first terrifying day, Sarah and Jack vowed to do whatever it took to stay alive, to navigate the treacherous world overrun by the undead, and to find a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. Chapter 2, The Gathering. Inside the walls of the makeshift warehouse sanctuary, Sarah and Jack wasted no time in assessing their situation. They knew that survival relied not only on their own abilities but also on the strength of their group. They needed more survivors, individuals who could contribute to their growing community and increase their chances of building a sustainable base. Word of their refuge spread through whispers among the desperate survivors they encountered during their forays for supplies. Some were hesitant, plagued by fear and mistrust, while others saw it as a glimmer of hope in the midst of the apocalypse. Slowly but steadily, their numbers began to grow. With each new member, Sarah and Jack emphasized the importance of unity and shared responsibility. They implemented a system of tasks, ensuring that everyone had a role to play in the group's survival. Some took charge of scouting for resources, others focused on fortifying the warehouse, and a few took on the responsibility of caring for the wounded. In those early days, they faced constant danger. The infected roamed the streets, their hunger for human flesh insatiable. Sarah and Jack led scouting parties, venturing cautiously into the treacherous city to search for survivors. They became experts in stealth, learning to move silently, blending with the shadows, and avoiding the ever-watchful eyes of the undead. As they encountered new survivors, they found strength in the diversity of skills they brought. Among their ranks were engineers who devised clever contraptions to reinforce their defenses, medics who tended to the wounded, and mechanics who could salvage and repair essential equipment. Each new addition provided a glimmer of hope and a sense of collective purpose. However, not all encounters were friendly. The survivors faced rival groups vying for control of dwindling resources. Sarah and Jack knew they had to tread carefully, avoiding conflict whenever possible. They focused on establishing alliances rather than engaging in open confrontation. It required delicate negotiation and strategic decision-making to secure necessary supplies without risking the lives of their own group. In the midst of this uncertain landscape, bonds formed among the survivors. Friendships blossomed, and a sense of camaraderie emerged. They shared stories around campfires, reminiscing about the world that was and finding solace in each other's company. Despite the constant threat of the infected, laughter occasionally echoed through the warehouse walls, reminding them of their shared humanity and the importance of finding joy amidst the darkness. As the group grew, so did their sense of purpose. They realized that their survival was not just about staying alive, it was about reclaiming their city, their home. They yearned to restore Dallas to its former glory, to rebuild what was lost, and to create a haven where humanity could flourish once more. With their numbers steadily increasing and a growing network of survivors connected through radio transmissions, Sarah and Jack began to plan for the future. Their ultimate goal was to establish a self-sustaining base, a community that could weather the storm of the apocalypse and stand as a beacon of hope in the darkness. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but the survivors were determined to face them head-on. They would need to secure a reliable source of clean water, cultivate food sources, gather fuel, and fortify their defenses against the relentless hordes of the infected. Their journey was far from over, but with each passing day, their resolve grew stronger, fueled by the unwavering determination to build a new world from the ashes of the old. Chapter 3: The Hunt for Supplies. In their quest for survival, Sarah and Jack knew that securing essential supplies was paramount. The warehouse, while providing temporary shelter, couldn't sustain their growing community indefinitely. They needed a steady source of clean water, non-perishable food, and other vital resources to thrive in the post-apocalyptic world. Armed with their knowledge of the city's layout and their scouting experience, Sarah and Jack led small teams on expeditions into the decaying remnants of Dallas. They moved with precision, always alert to the dangers lurking around every corner. Their primary focus was finding abandoned stores, supermarkets, and warehouses that might still hold valuable supplies. They encountered numerous obstacles along the way. Shattered glass, collapsed structures, and the ever-present threat of the infected made scavenging a perilous task. Each mission required careful planning, with their group members adopting stealth as their greatest ally. Entering a building was an exercise in caution and silence. They moved like shadows, checking every corner, listening intently for any signs of movement. The scent of decay filled the air, reminding them of the world they once knew, now reduced to a haunting echo of its former self. Their efforts yielded small victories. They uncovered caches of canned food, bottled water, and medical supplies. Each discovery was met with a mix of relief and bittersweet nostalgia, a reminder of the lives lost and the struggle to forge a new existence. However, not every scavenging trip went smoothly. On one occasion, their group found themselves trapped in an abandoned shopping mall, surrounded by a swarm of ravenous zombies. The undead pressed against the barricades, their moans reverberating through the halls. With limited ammunition and outnumbered, escape seemed impossible. In the face of danger, Sarah's ingenuity took hold. She devised a diversion, creating distractions to lure the zombies away while the rest of the group made their escape. It was a tense and heart-pounding ordeal, but they managed to slip away, leaving the relentless undead behind. As time passed, they discovered the true value of teamwork. Each member of the group contributed their unique skills and knowledge to the collective effort. Some excelled at navigating the treacherous terrain, while others had a knack for finding hidden caches of supplies. Together, they devised strategies, honed their survival instincts, and forged a bond that transcended mere survival. But it wasn't just the infected that posed a threat. As word of their resource-gathering expeditions spread, other desperate survivors and rival groups grew envious and territorial. They had to be vigilant, always mindful of potential conflicts and finding diplomatic ways to secure the supplies they needed without resorting to violence. Back at the warehouse, the fruits of their scavenging missions were carefully distributed and rationed. The survivors learned to make the most of their meager resources, embracing frugality and creativity. They repurposed items, transformed discarded materials into useful tools, and used every ounce of ingenuity to stretch their supplies further. With each successful mission, the survivors grew more adept at navigating the treacherous post-apocalyptic landscape. They became experts at extracting water from rain barrels, setting up simple filtration systems to ensure its cleanliness. They learned the art of preserving food, maximizing nutrition from what little they had. Their survival relied not only on their ability to scavenge but also on their adaptability. They understood that the world they knew had forever changed, and they needed to evolve with it. They embraced the challenge, finding solace in the strength and resilience that grew within them. As they returned from each expedition, their spirits soared. The supplies they gathered were small victories, tangible reminders that they were capable of sustaining themselves. With their newfound knowledge and growing stockpile of resources, Sarah and Jack started to envision a future, a self-sustaining base that would provide a haven for their community amidst the chaos. Little did they know that their journey to create a stable, self-sufficient sanctuary was about to become even more challenging. As they ventured further into the city, the threats intensified, and the stakes grew higher. The survivors would need to face new trials and push their limits as they fought to carve out a place of safety in the unforgiving world dominated by the undead. Chapter 4: The Fight for Light. As the survivors settled into their warehouse base, they realized the importance of having a reliable source of light. Darkness had become their constant companion, bringing a sense of unease and vulnerability. Without proper illumination, their efforts to fortify and improve their base were hindered, and their ability to navigate the perilous streets at night was severely limited. Driven by this pressing need, Sarah and Jack embarked on a dangerous mission to restore electricity to their sanctuary. They knew that a nearby power plant held the key to their quest for light, but reaching it would require navigating through a city infested with zombies and other dangers. Armed with flashlights, tools, and a map of the power plant's layout, Sarah and Jack led a small team through the desolate streets of Dallas. Their footsteps echoed in the silence as they cautiously made their way toward their destination. Shadows danced on the walls of dilapidated buildings, seemingly alive with lurking threats. They encountered numerous obstacles along the way, including packs of roaming zombies and the occasional scavenger seeking resources for their own survival. Each encounter required swift thinking and precise action to avoid drawing attention to themselves. Stealth became their greatest ally as they slipped past the undead and rival groups, silently working their way closer to the power plant. Reaching the power plant was only the beginning of their challenges. Decades of neglect had left the facility in disarray, its interior a maze of dark corridors and malfunctioning machinery. It was a race against time as they navigated through the dimly lit halls, avoiding hazards and reactivating the power grid one section at a time. Their mission was fraught with peril. The groans of the undead echoed through the empty rooms, and the constant threat of encountering a zombie horde made their pulses race. Sarah and Jack's leadership skills were put to the test as they guided their team through the darkness, ensuring everyone stayed focused and coordinated. They encountered unexpected dangers along the way: a malfunctioning generator that threatened to overload, sparking electrical fires that needed to be swiftly contained, and even a close call with a group of zombies that had managed to infiltrate the power plant. Every step brought them closer to success, but the risks grew with each passing moment. Finally, After hours of tension and relentless effort, the survivors successfully restored power to the warehouse base. The flickering glow of light bulbs illuminated the space, casting long-forgotten shadows onto the walls. It was a triumphant moment, a glimmer of hope in the midst of a world shrouded in darkness. With electricity restored, the survivors could now utilize lights, appliances, and electrical devices to their advantage. They set up a system of motion-activated lights to alert them of any intruders and installed surveillance cameras to monitor the perimeter. The once abandoned warehouse now radiated a sense of life and activity, as survivors worked diligently to fortify their base and create a semblance of normalcy. But the fight for light was not without its challenges. Maintaining a steady power supply required constant vigilance and occasional expeditions to scavenge for fuel. The survivors became proficient at salvaging gasoline from abandoned vehicles and gathering other necessary resources to sustain their electricity-dependent systems. The restored light brought more than just illumination, it brought a renewed sense of hope and determination. It symbolized their ability to overcome obstacles and adapt to the harsh realities of their post-apocalyptic existence. With each flicker of a light bulb, they grew one step closer to transforming their warehouse into a true sanctuary, a place where survivors could find solace, plan for the future, and build a community capable of weathering the storm of the undead. As the survivors basked in the glow of their achievement, they knew that their fight for survival had only just begun. The world outside remained a dangerous and unpredictable place, but with the power of light on their side, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 5, The Search for Sustainable Food. With their warehouse base now illuminated and fortified, the survivors turned their attention to another crucial aspect of survival, securing a sustainable food source. The limited supplies they had scavenged would only last so long, and relying solely on canned goods was not a viable long-term solution. They needed to find a way to cultivate their own food, even in the midst of a post-apocalyptic world. Sarah and Jack, fueled by their determination, led a group of survivors on a mission to search for viable land to establish a small-scale farm. They scoured the outskirts of Dallas, exploring abandoned parks, gardens, and even rooftop spaces that had the potential for cultivation. After days of arduous searching, they stumbled upon a hidden gem, an overgrown community garden tucked away behind a dilapidated building. The garden's soil, though neglected, still held promise. With renewed hope, the survivors set to work, clearing away weeds and debris, breathing life back into the neglected earth. Their first challenge was water. The survivors devised a system to collect rainwater and set up rudimentary irrigation to distribute it to the garden beds. It was a simple but crucial step in ensuring the plants had a fighting chance to grow and thrive. As they began planting seeds, the survivors pooled their collective knowledge of gardening and agriculture. Some had experience with urban farming, while others learned on the fly, sharing tips and techniques as they went along. They experimented with companion planting and vertical gardening to maximize their limited space. Their efforts were not without setbacks. The post-apocalyptic world presented its own set of challenges, from contaminated soil to scavenging pests. But the survivors persevered, adapting their techniques and finding innovative solutions. They implemented natural pest control methods, such as companion planting and homemade organic repellents, and meticulously monitored the soil for any signs of contamination. Days turned into weeks, and the once barren garden began to bear fruit literally. Leafy greens, vibrant vegetables, and even small fruits appeared, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the harsh realities of their surroundings. The taste of freshly picked produce, grown with their own hands, brought a sense of satisfaction and nourishment that surpassed anything they had experienced since the outbreak. The success of the community garden not only provided sustenance for the survivors but also served as a symbol of resilience and self-sufficiency. It became a source of inspiration, igniting a renewed determination to reclaim their autonomy in a world overrun by the undead. Embracing the principles of permaculture, the survivors expanded their efforts beyond the community garden. They began incorporating sustainable practices into their daily lives, composting organic waste, and establishing a small-scale aquaponics system to raise fish and grow vegetables in a symbiotic environment. As the survivors worked together, nurturing the earth and harvesting the fruits of their labor, a newfound sense of purpose permeated their group. They began to see themselves not just as survivors, but as pioneers, cultivating a new way of life amidst the ruins of the old world. The community garden also became a gathering place, a sanctuary within a sanctuary. It provided solace and respite from the harsh realities of their existence. In the midst of their collective toil, they found moments of joy and camaraderie, celebrating each harvest and sharing meals made from their own produce. Word of their successful food cultivation spread among other survivors in the area. Soon, the survivors' base became a hub of trade and collaboration. They exchanged surplus crops for other essential resources, establishing a network of mutual support in the post-apocalyptic landscape. The search for sustainable food was not only about nourishment but also about reclaiming a sense of normalcy and reclaiming their humanity. As the survivors witnessed the transformative power of nurturing life from the earth, they were reminded that they were not just surviving but thriving, defying the odds in a world plagued by darkness and despair. And so, with their bellies filled and their spirits lifted, the survivors pressed forward, ready to face the next challenge that awaited them. They had proven their ability to adapt, to forge a new path, and to create a future where hope and sustenance could coexist in a world ravaged by the undead. Chapter 6, Fuel for Survival. As the survivors celebrated their successful food cultivation, another pressing issue loomed over them: the scarcity of fuel. Their limited reserves were dwindling, and they needed a sustainable source to power their vehicles, generators, and other essential equipment. Sarah and Jack, fueled by their determination to secure the group's survival, set out on a perilous journey to find a reliable fuel source. Their knowledge of Dallas and its surrounding areas served as their guide as they embarked on a scavenging expedition. Their first stop was an abandoned gas station on the outskirts of the city. It was a grim reminder of the world that once was a place where people once fueled their vehicles without a second thought. Now, the pumps lay dormant, the fuel tanks seemingly empty. Undeterred, Sarah and Jack led their team inside the gas station's convenience store, searching for any overlooked fuel reserves. To their surprise and relief, they discovered a hidden storage room in the back, filled with jerry cans and barrels of gasoline. It was a small but significant victory, a lifeline to sustain their journey. Armed with their newfound fuel, the survivors expanded their search, venturing further into the desolate landscape. They scoured abandoned vehicles, siphoning every drop of fuel they could salvage. Each encounter with a broken-down car or abandoned gas station held the potential to replenish their reserves, but it also carried the risk of attracting unwanted attention from the undead. Their search became a delicate dance between necessity and danger. They learned to be stealthy, moving swiftly and quietly, leaving no trace of their presence behind. They developed a keen eye for signs of abandoned fuel caches and devised methods to safely extract and transport the precious resource. But as time went on, their luck began to wane. The immediate vicinity of Dallas had been thoroughly picked clean, and they needed to venture farther afield to secure a sustainable fuel source. Sarah and Jack decided to organize an expedition to a nearby refinery, a place where they hoped to find a larger, untapped reservoir of fuel. The refinery was a fortress of rusted metal and industrial machinery, its towering structures a stark reminder of the world's dependence on oil. It was also infested with zombies, making the mission all the more perilous. The survivors relied on their stealth and strategic planning, utilizing distraction techniques and precise strikes to clear a path toward the heart of the refinery. As they explored the maze-like facility, they discovered hidden storage tanks, still containing valuable fuel reserves. But the extraction process was far from simple. They faced numerous obstacles, from malfunctioning valves to the risk of causing catastrophic explosions. Each step forward required careful deliberation and teamwork. Their determination paid off as they successfully extracted a substantial amount of fuel from the refinery. With their vehicles laden with jerry cans, they made their way back to the warehouse base, their hearts filled with a mixture of triumph and relief. Back at the base, the survivors celebrated their hard-fought victory. The fuel they had secured provided a renewed sense of security and a lifeline to power their equipment and transportation. They established strict rationing protocols to ensure that their reserves would last as long as possible, recognizing the critical importance of conservation in their precarious world. But they also knew that their search for fuel couldn't end there. They needed to continue their scavenging efforts, constantly seeking new sources to replenish their reserves. They recognized that in this post-apocalyptic reality, adaptability and resourcefulness were the keys to survival. The journey for fuel taught the survivors the value of perseverance and the necessity of adapting to a world that had undergone a profound transformation. With their vehicles fueled and their determination renewed, they were ready to face the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that as long as they had fuel, their chances of survival were significantly increased. Chapter 7: The Hidden Threat. As the survivors settled into a routine, maintaining their fortified base and sustaining themselves with their garden and fuel reserves, a new danger lurked in the shadows. Unbeknownst to them, a group of ruthless scavengers had taken notice of their thriving sanctuary and coveted their resources. These scavengers, led by a charismatic but ruthless leader named Cain, had been watching the survivors from a distance, assessing their strengths and weaknesses. They had grown desperate in their own struggle for survival and saw an opportunity to seize the well-protected base and its valuable resources. One night, as the survivors gathered around a crackling fire, enjoying a rare moment of respite, their tranquility was shattered by the sound of distant gunfire. Panic spread through the group as they scrambled to their feet, ready to defend their home. Sarah and Jack, the stalwart leaders of the group, swiftly organized a defensive strategy. They positioned lookouts on the perimeter, ensuring no one could approach undetected. The survivors armed themselves, gripping their weapons tightly, ready to face whatever threat lay ahead. Under the cover of darkness, Cain's scavenger group launched their assault. They attacked from multiple directions, firing shots to create confusion and chaos. The survivors, though taken by surprise, quickly regrouped, taking strategic positions and returning fire. Bullets whizzed through the air as the survivors and scavengers exchanged gunfire, each side fighting for their own survival. The night was filled with the sound of screams, the crackling of flames, and the stench of gunpowder. The battle was fierce and relentless. Both sides fought with desperation, aware that defeat meant either death or enslavement at the hands of the enemy. The survivors relied on their knowledge of the base's layout and their close-knit camaraderie, while the scavengers used their numbers and ruthless tactics to gain an advantage. Sarah and Jack, leading by example, fought side by side with their fellow survivors, inspiring them to push beyond their limits. They utilized their knowledge of the base's defenses, strategically placing traps and utilizing the element of surprise to turn the tide in their favor. As the intense battle raged on, the survivors' determination and resourcefulness began to outweigh the scavengers' initial advantage. They fought with a fervor fueled by the desire to protect their newfound home and the lives of those they cared about. Hours stretched into what felt like an eternity, until finally, the survivors gained the upper hand. They managed to repel the scavengers, forcing them into a hasty retreat. But victory came at a cost. Several survivors had fallen during the battle, their sacrifice a haunting reminder of the harsh reality they faced. With the threat temporarily subdued, the survivors tended to their wounded and took stock of the damage. The base bore the scars of the fierce fight, but it stood strong, a testament to their resilience and determination. The survivors knew that their victory was only a temporary reprieve. They understood that other groups would be drawn to the resources they possessed, and the battle for their survival was far from over. The attack served as a stark reminder that in this post-apocalyptic world, trust could be a double-edged sword, and their vigilance needed to remain unwavering. As the survivors mourned their fallen comrades and tended to their wounds, they resolved to strengthen their defenses and devise new strategies to deter future attacks. They knew that survival required not only physical strength but also mental fortitude, a willingness to make difficult decisions and protect what they had built, no matter the cost. The hidden threat had been revealed, but the survivors remained undeterred. They would not allow their hard-earned sanctuary to fall into the hands of the ruthless scavengers. With each passing day, their resolve grew stronger, their bond tighter, as they prepared to face whatever challenges the post-apocalyptic world had in store for them. Chapter 8: A Desperate Alliance. In the aftermath of the attack, the survivors remained on high alert, acutely aware of the ever-present threat of hostile scavenger groups. They knew that their base's defenses needed reinforcement, and their numbers alone might not be enough to deter future attacks. It was clear they needed allies. Sarah and Jack, driven by their unwavering determination to protect their sanctuary, decided to seek out potential alliances within the decimated city of Dallas. They ventured into the dangerous streets, cautiously navigating the rubble and remnants of civilization. Their search led them to a group of survivors led by a resourceful and level-headed woman named Maya. Maya's group, like the survivors, had managed to carve out a safe haven in a fortified building downtown. However, they lacked the self-sustaining resources and fortified defenses that the survivors had successfully established. Sarah and Jack presented a proposal to Maya, a partnership based on mutual support and protection. They offered the survivors knowledge of sustainable farming, fuel procurement, and fortified base construction in exchange for Maya's group's skills in scavenging and their willingness to join forces against common threats. Maya, recognizing the value in such an alliance, agreed to the proposal. Together, the two groups returned to the survivors' base, where they initiated a cautious merging of their resources, knowledge, and manpower. The survivors and Maya's group began working together to fortify the base's defenses, reinforcing existing structures and fortifications. They shared their expertise, learning from each other's experiences, and combining their skills to create a stronghold that would be even more challenging for scavengers to breach. With their forces united, the survivors and Maya's group devised a comprehensive system of watchtowers, tripwires, and early warning mechanisms. They established rotation schedules for guards, ensuring constant vigilance against potential threats. The two groups trained together, honing their combat skills and developing coordinated strategies to repel attackers. But the alliance went beyond mere defensive measures. Maya's group brought valuable scavenging expertise to the table, expanding the survivors' reach in their search for essential supplies. They scoured the city in small teams, venturing into the most dangerous areas to find hidden stashes of food, medicine, and other crucial resources. The survivors and Maya's group formed a tight-knit community, sharing their burdens, hopes, and fears. They forged bonds of trust and camaraderie as they faced the harsh realities of their world together. In the darkest of times, their alliance provided a glimmer of light and a sense of unity amidst the chaos. As the days turned into weeks, the survivors' base evolved into a thriving community. They not only survived but began to thrive in their self-sustaining oasis. The garden flourished under the care of the survivors' farming expertise, providing an abundance of fresh produce to nourish the entire community. The scavenged resources, combined with the fuel secured from their expeditions, allowed them to sustain their vehicles, generators, and other essential equipment. The alliance with Maya's group also brought a newfound sense of hope. The survivors no longer felt alone in their fight for survival. They had allies they could rely on, bolstering their strength and resilience in the face of adversity. But even with their fortified base and newfound alliance, the survivors knew that their journey was far from over. The world outside continued to teem with threats, and the undead horde remained a constant presence. Their unity and resourcefulness would be tested time and time again as they navigated the treacherous post-apocalyptic landscape. However, the survivors had learned that together they were stronger than they could ever be alone. With their fortified base and their alliance, they stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, forging their path towards a future that defied the odds. Chapter 9, The Price of Survival. The survivors' fortified base stood as a beacon of resilience in the desolate landscape of post-apocalyptic Dallas. Their alliance with Maya's group had proven invaluable, providing them with increased security, shared resources, and a sense of community. Yet, as they settled into their new reality, they were about to face a challenge that would test their resolve like never before. Rumors began to circulate among the survivors. A group of merciless raiders known as the Reapers had emerged from the outskirts of the city. Their reputation preceded them, as tales of their brutality and ruthlessness spread like wildfire through the survivors' network. The Reapers were known for their willingness to do anything to survive, even at the expense of others. They showed no mercy to those who stood in their way, taking what they wanted and leaving devastation in their wake. Their presence loomed like a dark cloud, casting a shadow of fear and uncertainty over the survivors' already fragile existence. Sarah, Jack, and Maya understood the imminent threat posed by the Reapers. They knew that their fortified base would be a prime target for such a ruthless group, given its abundance of resources and the strength of their alliance. The survivors needed to prepare for a battle that would determine not only their survival but also the future they had fought so hard to build. The three leaders held a meeting with their most trusted advisors, strategizing on how to defend their base against the Reapers' imminent attack. They devised a plan that involved fortifying their defenses even further, creating additional barriers and strengthening their weapons arsenal. They organized training sessions for all the survivors, ensuring that each member of their community was equipped with the skills necessary to defend themselves. They honed their combat techniques, practiced stealth maneuvers, and learned to work as a cohesive unit. As the days passed, tensions within the base grew, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety thick in the air. The survivors prepared for the ultimate showdown, knowing that their very survival depended on their ability to repel the Reapers' assault. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. The Reapers descended upon the survivors' base like a swarm of locusts, their presence heralded by the deafening roar of motorcycles and the clanking of weapons. The survivors, united and resolute, met the attackers head-on. The clash was fierce and unforgiving, as bullets flew and melee weapons clashed. The base's defenses held strong, impeding the relentless advance of the Reapers. Sarah, Jack, and Maya fought with unparalleled determination, leading by example and rallying the survivors to hold their ground. Each life lost was a heavy blow, a stark reminder of the price they had to pay for their survival. The battle raged on, the survivors and the Reapers locked in a deadly dance of desperation. Both sides fought with everything they had, their will to survive fueling their relentless drive. Lives were lost on both sides, blood staining the ground as the fate of the base hung in the balance. But the survivors' resilience, fortified by their unity and strategic planning, proved to be their greatest weapon. They refused to yield, fighting with a ferocity born out of the determination to protect what they had built, a sanctuary amidst the chaos. As the dust settled and the echoes of gunfire faded, the survivors emerged victorious. The Reapers, battered and defeated, retreated into the shadows, vanquished by the collective strength and unwavering resolve of the survivors. The price of survival had been high. The survivors mourned their fallen comrades, their sacrifice a solemn reminder of the harsh reality they lived in. But amidst the loss, a renewed sense of purpose and unity emerged. They had proven that they were not just survivors, they were warriors, willing to fight for the future they believed in. With the threat of the Reapers temporarily quelled, the survivors set about rebuilding and fortifying their base once again. They knew that more challenges awaited them, that the world beyond their walls still held countless dangers. But with each battle fought and every obstacle overcome, their spirit grew stronger, and their determination burned brighter. Chapter 9 marked a turning point in their journey. The survivors had faced the darkest aspects of human nature and prevailed. Their bond as a community had been tested and proven unbreakable. Now, armed with the lessons learned from their battles, They stood ready to face whatever the post-apocalyptic world had in store, united and resolute in their quest for survival. Chapter 10, A Glimpse of Hope. The survivors had endured countless trials, battles, and losses throughout their journey. They had fortified their base, formed alliances, and fought off ruthless raiders. But in the midst of the relentless struggle for survival, a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon. One fateful day, as the survivors conducted a routine patrol around their fortified base, they stumbled upon a radio transmission. Static crackled through the speakers, and amidst the noise, they heard a faint but unmistakable voice of another survivor. Eagerly, they tuned in, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The voice belonged to a man named Thomas, who claimed to be part of a larger community located on the outskirts of Dallas. He spoke of a place where survivors had banded together, pooling their resources and knowledge to rebuild a semblance of civilization. The news spread like wildfire through the survivors' base, igniting a spark of hope within each member. They yearned for a life beyond mere survival, for a chance to reclaim a sense of normalcy in this chaotic world. Sarah, Jack, and Maya deliberated on their next course of action. The decision was unanimous: they would seek out this community and assess its viability as a potential new home for their own group. The survivors embarked on a perilous journey, navigating through the remnants of the city, cautiously avoiding hordes of the undead and staying on high alert for any other threats that may lurk along the way. Days turned into weeks as they trekked across desolate landscapes and abandoned neighborhoods. They encountered remnants of former civilization, crumbling buildings, shattered glass, and haunting reminders of a world that was lost. Finally, on the horizon, they spotted signs of life: a makeshift barricade and a flickering light in the distance. Excitement and apprehension filled their hearts as they approached the community's gate. Thomas greeted them with a mix of relief and curiosity. He introduced them to the diverse group of survivors who had found refuge in this newfound community. They had established a self-sustaining environment, with communal gardens, renewable energy sources, and a sense of camaraderie that had become a rarity in this post-apocalyptic world. The survivors exchanged stories and experiences, sharing their collective knowledge and skills. They marveled at the community's resilience and the progress they had made in rebuilding a semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos. In this community, the survivors found not only safety and stability but also a renewed sense of purpose. They contributed their expertise, enhancing the community's resources and defenses, while also benefiting from the support and shared knowledge of their new allies. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The survivors embraced their new home, forging deep connections with the people they had once called strangers. They learned to trust again, to dream of a future beyond the constant struggle for survival. Together, they built a flourishing society, an oasis of hope in a world ravaged by darkness. They knew the dangers outside their walls still existed, but their unity and resilience gave them the strength to face whatever challenges came their way. As the days passed, the survivors reminisced about the journey that had brought them here: the battles fought, the losses endured, and the bonds forged. They recognized the indomitable spirit that had carried them through, the unyielding determination to rebuild and thrive. Their story was one of resilience, courage, and the triumph of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. They were a testament to the enduring strength of humanity and a beacon of hope for others who still fought to survive in this post-apocalyptic world. And as the survivors looked to the future, they knew that as long as they stood together, there would always be a flicker of hope amidst the darkness, guiding them toward a brighter tomorrow.